There is a person you have met at some point in your life. Maybe it was a colleague. Maybe it was someone at a party. Maybe it was someone across a table in a difficult conversation. You tried to get a reaction from them. You pushed. You prodded. You said something sharp, something pointed, something designed to land. And they just looked at you. Not with anger. Not with hurt. Not with confusion. They just looked at you. Calm. Still. Unmoved. And something happened inside you in that moment that you did not expect. You felt afraid. Not of them physically. Not of anything they said. But of something you couldn't name. Something ancient and instinctive that recognized in that stillness a kind of power you had never encountered before. That person had something most human beings will never develop. They had dead eyes. And by the time this is over, you will understand exactly what that is. Why it is the single most devastating psychological weapon available to a human being, and how to build it inside yourself so completely that no attack, no insult, no attempt at humiliation will ever reach you again. But I need to warn you before we begin. What I'm going to describe is not a performance. It is not a mask you put on. It is a fundamental transformation in how you relate to other people's opinions of you. And that transformation, once it happens, cannot be undone. You will see people differently. You will see their attempts to wound you as something almost pathetic, something almost sad. And once you see it that way, you can never unsee it. If you are ready for that, let's begin. Think about the last time someone attacked you, verbally, publicly, or privately, in a moment designed to make you feel small. What happened in your body? The heat, the tightness in the chest, the sudden awareness of your own face and what it was doing. The racing calculation behind your eyes. Do I respond? Do I stay quiet? Do I laugh it off? Do I fight back? That entire storm, that entire internal earthquake, it was visible. Not all of it, but enough. Your pupils dilated, your jaw tightened, or your face flushed, or your eyes moved away for a fraction of a second. Your breathing changed. Your posture shifted. You showed them something, and the moment you showed them something, they won. This is the brutal truth that almost nobody understands about social conflict. The victor is not the person who delivers the best comeback. The victor is not the person who makes the most compelling argument. The victor is not even the person who is objectively right. The victor is the person who reacts least. Because reaction is information, and information is power. And the moment you hand someone information about what hurts you, what destabilizes you, what makes you feel small, you have handed them a weapon they can use against you, not just today, but every day from this point forward. They now know your buttons, and people who know your buttons will press them, deliberately, casually, sometimes unconsciously. But they will press them. Every time they want to feel powerful, every time they feel threatened by you, every time they need to remind themselves and everyone watching that they have leverage over you. Your reaction is your leash, and as long as you keep reacting, someone else is holding it. Now let's understand why you react in the first place, because this is not a character flaw. This is not weakness. This is biology. And you cannot override a biological system until you understand what it is doing and why. When someone attacks you, verbally, socially, emotionally, your brain does not know the difference between that and a physical threat. Your amygdala, the ancient alarm center buried deep in your brain, activates in milliseconds. It floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. It prepares your muscles for physical action. Fight. Run. Freeze. In the wild, this system saved lives. If a predator appeared, the human being who reacted fastest survived. The one who paused to think was eaten. but you are not in the wild. You are in an office. You are at a dinner table. You are in a social setting where physical action is not only useless, it is actively destructive to your position. And here is the terrible irony. The same biological system that once protected your ancestors is now the thing being used against you by anyone who understands human psychology. When a skilled manipulator, a practiced shamer, a Machiavellian social predator wants to destabilize you, they do not need to physically threaten you. They just need to trigger your amygdala. They need to say or do something that activates that ancient alarm. And your body does the rest. Your face tells the story. Your body broadcasts the signal. Your reaction confirms what they wanted the room to believe, that they have power over you, that their words reach you, that you are, in some fundamental way, under their influence. The Machiavellian mind understands this completely, and the Machiavellian counter is not to fight the amygdala directly. It is to build something around it. A wall, a distance, a layer of controlled stillness between the trigger and the response. That is what dead eyes are. Not an absence of feeling, not actual coldness. A controlled delay between stimulus and response that is so long, so complete, so absolute, that by the time you choose to respond, if you choose to respond at all, the power dynamic has already shifted entirely in your favor. Let's talk about predators. In the animal kingdom, there are prey animals and there are predators. And the behavioral difference between them is not primarily one of size or strength, it is one of stillness. Watch a gazelle in the moments before it detects danger. Watch its eyes. Watch its body. It is in a constant state of low-level alert. Small movements, constant scanning, ready to bolt at any signal. Now watch a lion at rest. The lion does not scan. The lion does not flinch. The lion lies in the sun with a kind of absolute, occupying stillness that communicates something on a frequency below words. I am not afraid of this environment. This environment is afraid of me. This is not a performance. The lion is not pretending to be calm. The lion is calm because it does not have a prey animal's relationship with fear. It does not calculate escape routes. It does not rehearse responses. It simply exists, massive and still and completely present, and everything around it adjusts accordingly. Human social dynamics operate on the exact same frequency. When you react to an attack, you are broadcasting prey energy. You are telling everyone watching, at a level below conscious awareness, that you are the kind of creature that can be destabilized, that words reach you, that other people's opinions have weight inside your nervous system. When you do not react, you broadcast predator energy, not aggression. Aggression is also a reaction. Aggression tells the room that the attack landed, that it hurt, that it required a forceful response. True predator energy is something entirely different. It is disinterest. It is the energy of something so secure in its own position that the attack barely registered. The energy of someone for whom the insult was not a threat, but merely a sound, a noise in the environment. Interesting, perhaps, worth noting, but not worth the expenditure of any real emotional energy. When you project that energy, something shifts in the room. The attacker expected resistance. They expected your emotions to meet their emotions and create a collision they could use. When they get stillness instead, they are faced with a vacuum. Their attack passes through you and finds nothing to push against. And in that vacuum, they begin to unravel. Now, I want to be precise about something, because this is where most people misunderstand dead eyes entirely. Dead eyes are not a technique of cruelty. They are not about making someone feel ignored or dismissed. They are not a power game in the petty sense of the word. They are a state of genuine internal mastery. The difference is everything. A person who performs stillness who is actually screaming internally while wearing a calm face, is not practicing dead eyes. They are practicing suppression. And suppression is exhausting, unsustainable, and actually more psychologically damaging than simply reacting. True dead eyes come from a different place entirely. They come from a fundamental reorientation of where you locate your reality. Most people locate their reality outside themselves. Their mood is determined by how the morning meeting went. Their sense of worth is determined by what their partner said at breakfast. Their stability is determined by whether the people around them are approving or disapproving, warm or cold, engaged or dismissive. These people are permanently vulnerable because the outside world is chaotic, unpredictable, and largely indifferent to anyone's well-being. When you depend on it for your internal state, you are building your house on water. The person with dead eyes has relocated. They have built their house on stone, on an internal foundation so solid, so deeply their own, that the weather outside, no matter how violent, does not penetrate the walls. When someone insults them, they feel it, certainly. They are not numb, they are not dissociated, but they feel it the way you feel rain when you are standing inside a warm house, watching it fall through the window. You see it, you observe it, you might even find it interesting, but it does not get you wet. Let's talk about what this looks like in practice, because dead eyes is not an abstract philosophy. It is a specific, learnable, repeatable state that you can cultivate through deliberate practice. And when you can access it on demand, in the middle of a confrontation, under social pressure, in a moment designed to break you, you become functionally invulnerable. Here is the physical component first. When the attack comes, your job is to do 3 things with your body. First, you slow your breathing, not dramatically, not visibly, but internally you take control of the breath. One long, slow exhale through the nose. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It begins to counter the adrenaline response. It gives your prefrontal cortex, the thinking, rational part of your brain, a chance to come back online before your amygdala drives you off a cliff. Second, you go still, completely still. You do not shift your weight. You do not touch your face. You do not blink rapidly. You minimize every micro movement that broadcasts anxiety. You become, physically, a monument. Third, you make direct, sustained, completely neutral eye contact. Not aggressive eye contact, not challenging eye contact, not the wide eyes of shock or the narrowed eyes of anger. Neutral, flat, clinical. The eyes of someone who is observing a mildly interesting phenomenon. Hold that eye contact for 3 to 5 seconds without speaking. Do not look away. Do not look down. Do not look at the audience. Look at the attacker. In those 3 to 5 seconds, something happens in the room that you need to understand. The audience, everyone watching, is waiting for your reaction. They have been trained by every movie, every social interaction, every lifetime of human behavior to expect that an attack will generate a response. Their brains are primed for the collision. When the collision does not come, their attention snaps back to the attacker. And the attacker, who has just delivered their best weapon and watched it pass through you without detonating, begins to experience something they did not plan for. Doubt. Did it land? Do they care? Are they about to do something unpredictable? Are they dangerous? The attacker expected to feel powerful after the insult. Instead, they feel uncertain. And uncertainty is the beginning of their unraveling. Now let's talk about the internal component, because the physical stillness is the visible expression of something deeper. And without the internal foundation, the physical stillness will crack under sustained pressure. The internal component of dead eyes is what I call the observer frame. When you are inside the observer frame, you are not a participant in the interaction. You are a scientist watching it unfold, The attack is not something being done to you. It is data about the person delivering it. Think about what it actually means when someone publicly attacks you. A genuinely secure, genuinely happy, genuinely powerful person does not need to diminish others. They have no reason to. They are not threatened. They are not competing. They are not afraid. The person who attacks you in public is telling you something. They are telling you that they feel threatened by your presence, that your existence is in some way a challenge to their sense of status or security, that they need to diminish you because they have not yet found a way to build themselves up from the inside. This is not a judgment. This is simply an accurate reading of the behavior. When you see it this way, when you are truly inside the observer frame, the insult lands differently, not as a wound, as a signal. This person is afraid of me, and that recognition, that clear, quiet, unshakable recognition, changes everything about how you hold your body, how you hold your face, and how you hold your silence. Because you are not suppressing hurt. You are genuinely, accurately, completely unmoved. Because what they said was not an accurate assessment of your worth. It was a symptom of their fear. And you don't take symptoms personally. You observe them. You note them. You file them away. And then you decide, calmly, from a position of complete control, what, if anything, you choose to do next. When you do choose to speak, and sometimes you will, there are specific responses available to you that maintain the dead-eye state while applying what can only be described as surgical psychological pressure. The first is the single question. After your silence, after you have held the space long enough that the room has shifted, that the attacker has begun to feel the weight of their own words falling back on them, you speak. Not to defend, not to attack, not to explain. You ask a question, and you make it a question about them. They say, you have no idea what you are talking about. You look at them for 3 seconds, completely still, and then you say, quietly, without emotion, what made you feel the need to say that? Notice what just happened. The conversation is no longer about whether you know what you are talking about. The conversation is now about why they felt the need to attack. We are now examining their psychology, their motivations, their emotional state. You have flipped the microscope. You are the scientist. They are the specimen. And the entire room just watched it happen. The second response is the soft echo. They deliver the attack. You wait. And then you simply, neutrally, almost gently, repeat part of what they said back to them. They say, you are embarrassing yourself. You say, after a pause, I am embarrassing myself. Not as a question. Not with shame. With the tone of someone repeating an interesting observation they are deciding what to do with. This is deeply unsettling to an attacker, because they have no idea what it means. Are you agreeing? Are you mocking them? Are you broken? Are you dangerous? The ambiguity is the weapon. When people cannot read you, they cannot control you. And when they cannot control you, they are afraid. The third response is the redirect. They attack you. You pause. And then you continue the conversation as if the attack didn't happen. As if they said something completely normal and you are simply moving forward. They say, that is the stupidest idea I have ever heard. You pause 3 seconds, and then, without acknowledging what they said in any way, you continue with whatever you were saying before. As I was explaining, the second component of the proposal is, this is devastating, because what you have communicated non-verbally is clear and absolute. What you said wasn't worth my acknowledgement. It was not even worth a response. It registered, briefly, as noise in my environment. And then I moved forward, because I have things to do and places to be. And your opinion of my intelligence doesn't alter the direction of my day. The attacker is left with nothing. Their weapon landed and produced zero effect. And the room watched it happen. Let's talk about the building process. Because dead eyes is not something you turn on in a crisis without having built it over time. It is a practice, a daily, deliberate, patient practice. And it begins not in conflict, but in silence. The first practice is what I call the morning stillness. Before you speak to anyone, before you look at your phone, before you expose yourself to the noise of the world, you sit quietly, completely still, for 10 minutes. You do not meditate in the spiritual sense if that is not your inclination. You simply sit, and you practice the physical state of dead eyes. You practice the neutral face, the still body, the slow breath, the flat, forward gaze. You are training your nervous system to recognize this state as accessible. You are building a neurological pathway between stillness and safety, so that when you need it, when you are under pressure, when the attack comes, your body knows the way there because it has traveled that road 1,000 times before. The second practice is the observer journal. At the end of each day, you write down every moment where you reacted when you did not want to. Every moment where someone's words changed your internal state when you would have preferred them not to. You do not judge yourself. You observe yourself like a scientist. You note the trigger, the context, the internal sensation, the behavior it produced. Over time, you will begin to see patterns. You will identify your specific vulnerabilities, the particular kinds of attacks that reliably breach your stillness. And once you have identified them, you can work on them deliberately. You can practice in the quiet of your own mind, encountering those specific attacks and maintaining your stillness. You can rehearse the observer frame in response to your personal triggers until the response becomes automatic. The third practice is the cold shower. I do not mean this metaphorically, I mean it literally. Every morning, after your stillness practice, you stand under water that is genuinely uncomfortable, and you train yourself to be still, not to fight it, not to gasp dramatically, not to narrate it internally with suffering. You breathe, you stand. You observe the discomfort without fusing with it. This is not masochism. This is the physical, embodied practice of the fundamental skill, the ability to experience something uncomfortable and choose your response to it, rather than having your response chosen for you by your nervous system. Every morning that you choose stillness in the cold water, you are reinforcing the neural architecture of dead eyes. You are training your system to understand that discomfort is not an emergency, that something that stings does not require an immediate, reactive response, that you are capable of feeling something and choosing, deliberately, what to do with it. Over weeks and months, this practice changes you from the inside, not into someone who feels less, but into someone whose feelings no longer have automatic control over their behavior. Now I want to address the thing that some people will feel reading this, a kind of discomfort with the concept itself. Is this not cold? Is this not a way of becoming disconnected from genuine human feeling? Is this not, in some sense, the path toward becoming the very thing, the manipulative, unfeeling, Machiavellian predator that this knowledge is supposed to protect you from? It is a fair question, and it deserves a real answer. Dead eyes is not the absence of empathy. It is the protection of it. Here is the distinction. A person who reacts to every attack, who shows their hurt, their anger, their destabilization openly and immediately, is not more empathetic than someone with dead eyes. They are simply more available for exploitation. They have no boundary between their inner life and the outer world. And that absence of boundary does not make them more connected. It makes them more controlled. Every person who has ever manipulated someone, shamed someone, used someone's emotions against them, they relied on exactly this, on the target's inability to separate their inner life from the attack. When you develop dead eyes, you are not closing yourself off from genuine connection. You are building a gate. The gate stays closed for people who want to exploit your openness. It opens, deliberately, willingly, with full awareness, for people you choose to trust. You are not becoming less human. You are becoming a human who chooses when and to whom they are vulnerable, rather than being permanently available for wounding by anyone who decides to aim in your direction. That is not coldness. That is sovereignty. And now let's talk about what happens over time. What happens to a person who has genuinely, deeply built the dead eyes state as a foundation of how they move through the world. Something remarkable begins to occur. People stop attacking them, not because they are more feared exactly, although that is part of it, but because attacking them produces nothing. And humans, even difficult, manipulative, predatory humans, are ultimately economical creatures. They invest energy where there is a return. If you consistently produce no return on their investment of hostility, if your stillness reliably consumes their attack and gives back nothing, they will eventually stop attacking. Not because they have become better people, but because you have become unprofitable as a target. And something else happens too. People begin to trust them differently. There is a kind of person we have all encountered who is so consistently calm, so reliably unshakable, that simply being near them produces a kind of peace. They do not perform calm. They do not reassure you that everything is fine. They simply exist in a way that makes you feel, without evidence, that things will in fact be fine. These people are not calm because their lives are easy. They are calm because they have built something inside themselves that the chaos of the outside world cannot touch. And that calm is contagious in the most profound way. When you develop dead eyes, you do not just protect yourself from attack. You become a source of stability for everyone around you. You become the person in the room that others orient toward when things get difficult. Not because you have the loudest voice or the most impressive credentials, but because your stillness communicates something that every anxious, reactive human being is desperately searching for. Safety. The sense that this person knows where they are. This person is not scrambling. This person has a foundation that does not shift with the news cycle, with other people's moods, with the random chaos of circumstance. This is what dead eyes ultimately become at their fullest development. Not a weapon, a presence. The presence of someone who has done the deep, painful, patient work of locating their worth not in the approval of others, not in the absence of attack, not in the validation of any external source, but in themselves, quietly, permanently, immovably. So here is where we have arrived. Dead eyes are not emptiness. They are fullness. They are not the eyes of someone who feels nothing. They are the eyes of someone who has felt everything, chosen to process it internally rather than broadcast it externally, and arrived at a state of genuine, deep, sovereign peace. They are the eyes of the lion at rest, of the mountain in the storm, of the deep ocean that accepts whatever the surface throws at it and returns to stillness. You have been living as the surface, reacting to every wave, churned and turned by every current. You can choose to become the depth, and the depth does not react. The depth does not perform. The depth does not need to prove itself to the surface, because the depth was here before the surface existed, and it will be here long after the last wave has broken. When someone attacks you from this point forward, they will see something in your eyes that they will not be able to name. They will feel it before they understand it. A kind of stillness that makes them aware, suddenly, that their attack has passed through you without damage. That their words, which they believed were arrows, have turned to smoke in the air between you. They will feel, without being able to articulate why, that they have made an error. That they have aimed at something that cannot be struck. That they have thrown everything they had at a mountain, and the mountain did not even look up. That is dead eyes. That is what you are building. And once it is built, once it is genuinely, deeply, permanently yours, no one will ever hold a leash to you again. That is the promise. That is the destination. Go build it.